Air Force One has no guns, no missiles, no offensive weapons of any kind. And yet, if you tried to shoot it down, odds are you'd fail. Fast. It flies inside a moving 30-mile no-fly zone with fighter jets on standby within minutes. Its countermeasures can blind heat-seeking missiles before they even come close. And buried inside the plane, 238 miles of wiring, each inch shielded to survive a nuclear blast. Here's the twist. It's not any one of those defenses that makes it nearly untouchable. It's all of them working together, layered, automated, and ready to go at a moment's notice. Air Force One looks like a regular jumbo jet from a distance, but what you're actually looking at is a highly customized Boeing 747-200B, known as the VC-25A. Inside, it's nothing like a commercial airliner. Like, this is a 4,000 square foot flying command center spread over 3 levels. It carries up to 102 people and comes packed with 85 phones, secure video conferencing, satellite links, the full setup to run a war or negotiate peace at 45,000 feet. To date, there are only 2 in existence. Both fly on every presidential trip, one always acting as a backup or decoy. And even though it's officially called Air Force One, only when the president is on board, its capabilities are always ready to go. Now here's where it gets interesting. The scale, the tech, the redundancies, all of it sounds impressive on paper, but none of it matters if someone can bring the plane down. And that single vulnerability changed everything. They didn't just upgrade the jet. They wrapped it in 7 layers of protection designed to make sure that never happens. Because at any given moment, there's an invisible bubble of restricted airspace spanning 30 nautical miles above 18,000 feet moving with the president. It's called a temporary flight restriction, or TFR, and it's not just a warning. It's enforced by NORAD and can be activated in minutes. The outer ring starts 30 nautical miles out, a massive dome of restricted airspace reaching up to 18,000 feet. To enter, you need a pre-approved flight plan, a live line to air traffic control, and a specific transponder code broadcasting at all times. No sightseeing, no practice landings, no loitering. Deeper inside the 10-mile ring, even that's not enough. It's a hard no-fly zone. The only aircrafts allowed are pre-cleared support planes or press pool jets. Anything else crosses that line, it gets intercepted, fast. Before any missile could even be launched, you'd have to get into position, and the airspace won't let you even come close. This is just the first layer. The next one sees you coming. Even if you somehow breached the 30-mile restricted airspace around Air Force One, you wouldn't go unnoticed, not for a second. NORAD is always watching. This isn't just a radar station here and there. It's a fully integrated binational command between the US and Canada that tracks everything in the sky, 24/7, 365 days a year. There's a layered surveillance web across the entire continent. Fixed ground-based radar arrays, mobile radar on AWACS planes circling high above, and satellites in orbit constantly scanning for signs of ballistic or cruise missile launches. Every aircraft is logged, identified, and tracked. If one appears without the right transponder code or veers off its flight plan, it gets flagged immediately. Non-compliant or unidentified, NORAD triggers a response in minutes. Fighter jets sit armed and ready at bases near major cities and along known presidential travel corridors. Real-time data flows between NORAD, bases, and Air Force One seamlessly. Even civil air traffic is cross-checked constantly with FAA data to make sure nothing slips through the cracks. And if you're thinking stealth or low altitude might give you an edge, think again. AWACS planes can detect aircraft flying nap of the Earth. Satellites spot the heat signatures of missiles the second they launch. So unless you can move faster than radar, avoid infrared detection, and dodge a fighter response all at once, you're not getting close. If Layer 1 is the barrier, this is the tripwire. And if you still manage to cross it, well, that's when things get loud. Here's where the myth falls apart. Despite what movies love to show, fighter jets don't routinely fly alongside Air Force One. Most of the time, especially over US airspace, they travel alone. No close escort, no dramatic flybys. But here's the catch. That's not a security gap. It's by design. The 30-mile airspace bubble, layered radar coverage, and real-time surveillance make a constant fighter presence unnecessary, but that doesn't mean the jets aren't close. F-15S, F-16S, and F-22S sit on high alert at bases across the country, armed, fueled, and ready to scramble within minutes. If anything enters the restricted zone without clearance, those jets are in the air before anyone or anything gets near the plane. When fighters escort Air Force One, it's because the situation demands it. Credible threats, national emergencies, or flights into contested or foreign airspace. On rare ceremonial visits, host nations might provide an escort too. But the best example of how things used to work and how they changed was 9/11. Air Force One took off from Florida without a single escort jet. It stayed unprotected for over an hour before the first F-16S caught up. By the final leg into Andrews, 11 fighters were flying cover. That moment rewrote the rules. So if you're wondering why you don't see fighter jets next to Air Force One, it's simple. They don't fly beside it because they don't have to. They're already waiting, on the ground, engines hot, ready to respond. Here's the part most people don't realize. If something does get through that invisible airspace barrier, the response isn't theoretical. Armed fighter jets, F-15S, F-16S, and F-22S are on alert 24/7 across the country. They're already positioned where they need to be, ready to scramble in minutes. You enter that 30-mile restricted bubble without clearance, they'll be in the air before you even know they're coming. And they don't show up to ask questions. Just ask the pilots who triggered one of the 11 TFR violations over a single weekend. Every one of them intercepted. But let's say, somehow, a threat does make it through. That's when the plane itself fights back, without firing a single shot. Air Force One is outfitted with some of the most advanced onboard defense systems ever installed on a civilian aircraft. At the tail, our ultraviolet sensors constantly scan for the exhaust signatures of incoming missiles. The moment one's detected, the system tracks its path, calculates the threat, and automatically cues countermeasures. Directional infrared lasers, part of the Nemesis DIRCM system, target the missile's seeker head directly, blinding it mid-flight. Meanwhile, flares and chaff can be launched in rapid succession, creating false targets for both heat-seeking and radar-guided threats. And even then, there's another advantage most attackers can't do anything about: altitude. Air Force One cruises at 35,000 to 45,000 feet, far above the reach of most shoulder-fired weapons like man-pads. Those systems have to be launched from close range and low altitude, usually during takeoff or landing. But thanks to those rolling TFRs, the plane is kept well out of reach even on the ground. So if someone did want to take a shot, they'd get one tiny window, and the odds of hitting anything in that window? Practically zero. Even the most accessible anti-aircraft weapon on Earth can't even touch it. Shoulder-fired missiles, man-pads, are the threat every security planner loses sleep over. They're portable, they're deadly, and they can be launched by a single person. But they have one fatal flaw: a ceiling. Most top out around 15,000 feet. Air Force One cruises between 35,000 and 45,000 feet. That's not a close call. That's not a narrow margin. It's a gap so wide the weapon literally cannot reach the aircraft for 99% of its flight. The only window of vulnerability? Takeoff and landing. Those brief minutes when the jet is climbing or descending through the danger zone. And even then, the TFRs keep any potential shooter miles from the runway, so the one weapon most likely to be used against it never gets a shot. But what about the one thing no one on Earth is supposed to survive? Let's say the worst-case scenario actually unfolds: a high-altitude nuclear detonation. Communication networks fried, satellites disrupted, chaos unfolding across the country. Air Force One keeps flying. We're talking about a plane that's not just prepared for an attack. It's designed to keep the president in command even during nuclear war, with 238 miles of EMP-shielded wiring and systems that can withstand the electromagnetic pulse from a high-altitude nuclear detonation. This aircraft isn't just about dodging missiles. It's built to function when the rest of the world is in chaos. And if the situation demands, knowing that can stay airborne indefinitely with its in-flight refueling system tucked in the nose of the plane, allowing it to connect mid-air to a KC-135 tanker, giving it a theoretically unlimited range. But staying airborne isn't the only thing Air Force One is capable of. The aircraft is also equipped to run a country. It can act as a mobile command post during a nuclear attack, handling encrypted communications worldwide. So when the stakes are that high, this plane is more than just decked-out Boeing 747. It's the last line of defense and command during nuclear war. Then this happened. For one terrifying hour on September 11th, the most protected aircraft on Earth was flying blind. September 11th, 2001 was the ultimate test for Air Force One. The plane was in the air within minutes of the first attack, but for over an hour. It flew without any fighter escort, despite the fact that hijacked planes were still airborne. Colonel Mark Tillman, the pilot at the time, made a dramatic climb to 45,000 feet, pulling the plane out of range of any potential threat. Even though Air Force One was the top target for anyone trying to bring down the president, no fighter jets were on board to protect it. Instead, they got word of a possible threat when the call sign "Angel is next" was relayed. After this tense hour, 11 fighter jets finally swarmed to escort Air Force One on its final descent to Andrews Air Force Base. The whole situation highlighted a massive gap in the system, but it also led to swift changes. After 9/11, NORAD restructured its protocols, speeding up scramble times and improving communication with the FAA. The never-again mentality took hold. And the layers of protection around the president's air travel were enhanced. The system had failed that day, but it would never fail again. Today, Air Force One is just one piece of a massive fleet that travels with the president, including backup planes, helicopters, and an entire team of security measures. And those fighter jets that were once a rarity, they're now always on standby, ready to intercept any threat. Because the protection of the president, as we learned on September 11th, is something that can never be taken for granted again. So, why is impossible the right word when talking about bringing down Air Force One? It's not because the plane relies on any single system. It's because it has 7 interlocking layers of defense working together to ensure the president's safety. First, yes, you'd have to breach the airspace control zone, a 30-mile restricted radius, without even being detected. Then, you'd have to avoid the intercept of armed fighter jets, dodge advanced missile warning systems, and somehow defeat a variety of countermeasures, each one designed to confuse and misdirect any attack. And all of this while the plane cruises at 630 miles per hour, 45,000 feet in the air, well out of reach of most conventional threats. The crazy part? Even if you manage to break through all of that, Air Force One is built to allow the president to command the country indefinitely from the air. So, to put it simply, there's no weapon system on Earth capable of doing all of that. And that's not just security, it's a level of redundancy so deep it might border on paranoid. But when it comes to protecting the leader of the free world, that's exactly the point.